Welcome to the Retail Tech Podcast, where we talk about the full spectrum of technologies and implementation used in omnichannel and online retail. Make sure to subscribe to our newsletter at retailtechpodcast.com, and we always look forward to your feedback. Today I'm speaking with Eric Olson, VP of Educational Strategies at National Retail Federation. Eric is responsible for the event content, all the content that goes into the different programs at the retail conference, as well as the keynotes. So, Eric, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to talk to me. I wanted to discuss the different types of content that are being presented at the NRF Big Show 2017 this year. What are the different content areas or tracks that are being offered?
Sure. So we have our keynotes. We have 10 of those in North Hall. Those are kind of like our big name speakers. They take place at various times throughout the conference. And again, those are some of our larger, bigger names within the retail industry, influential and whatnot. We have our feature stage, which is kind of our second largest stage. Those are also pretty influential, strategic topics and key retailers, describing kind of some of the stories that they've been working on over the course of the year. And then we have our breakout sessions, and the breakouts are cut into different tracks that feature different functional areas within retail. And they are probably more tactical in nature to address kind of step-by-step how-tos, primarily with retail practitioners as well as a few analysts, and we also feature certain research and vendors within those.
Okay, so starting from the keynotes, can you give me some highlights of the people that are going to be speaking?
Sure. So we typically open our Sunday morning keynotes. Again, that's kind of opens up the full program of content. Typically features some pretty high-level people. So, and this year we're focusing on the workforce of tomorrow. So, how do you acquire and retain talent within retail? One of the kind of big things that CEOs keep them up at night. So, on that particular panel, we have Terry Lundgren, chairman of Macy's, as well as Mindy Grossman, CEO of HSN. Executive Chairman and CEO of Ashley Stewart, James Rhee, and then also Greg Ferran, President and CEO of Walmart US. So it's a pretty, a pretty good group of people across different retail segments. Mindy, who is our incoming chairman, will be kind of both participating but also moderating and guiding the discussion between the different the different CEOs and executives on this particular panel. So we're excited to have that. Moving on into the next one, looking at kind of the in-store experience and how data insights are driving exceptional experience within stores, and particularly obviously bricks and mortar. So GameStop Corporation's EVP and President of their international operations, Mike Mahler, will be speaking, doing a presentation, as well as the Vitamin Shop CEO, Colin Watts. He'll also be providing a presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of that. I will also just kind of touch on not just every single one, because we have 11 in total.
Sure.
But Richard Branson is probably kind of our key highlight. That'll be Monday morning. Kip Tindall is chairman of that current chairman of National Retail Federation, and also the co-founder chairman of Container Store. He'll be doing an interview, Q&A, kind of fireside chat with Richard Branson. Very interesting there is that 40 years after founding the company, he is still heavily involved in a lot of the, keeping the company current and with the times, looking at startups and how they can kind of keep involved within that ecosystem. So he's looking at really utilizing kind of the brand engagement in the state of continuous disruption and reinvention. So it'll be interesting to kind of hear his perspectives. And then immediately following that, from a tech perspective, because I know that your podcast deals primarily on the technology side. We have Intel CEO joining us this year. We're really excited to have that. He typically speaks at CES this time of year. I guess it just happened last week. He decided to utilize NRF Big Show as his platform this year. They're going to bring some really exciting technology to the stage, showcasing that in a number of little demonstrations, as well as he's going to bring Carrie Osk from Levi Strauss. She's their executive vice president and executive VP and president of their global retail brand. So we're really excited to have that. That's going to be a really dynamic presentation, lots of moving parts. So I would say that would not to be missed as well. And then let me just kind of finalize the kind of overview. There's one keynote that we typically feature some of the more startup ecosystem types of speakers. Maybe these are kind of companies that are just emerging onto the retail scene and looking to create major impact. They're part of we call retail's big fast track, and these companies will be featured. They participate in XRC Labs cohort last year. Toward the end of the year, we have Perseus Mears, Shops, Banter, Stripes. Those are kind of the four kind of primary CEOs and co-founders of each of those companies. They'll come up for kind of 15-minute quick hit types of presentations on how their big ideas are impacting retail, and then they'll be all joining at the end for an informative, more kind of deeper dive into with a full Q&A with all participants.
Okay, this is definitely a pretty impressive list already, and we haven't covered everything. So, what about the featured stage? Is that what you were referring to as the startup keynote?
So the feature stage, really, we have, I guess, what you would kind of call more strategic discussions with bigger brands, or else, presidents, CEOs from more international brands, things like that, that can kind of talk strategically about really bigger views of their kind of retail worlds, if you will. So, for example, on Sunday, we'll be featuring, Walmart's Chief Sustainability Officer and President. She's, from the Walmart Foundation, Kathleen McLaughlin. She's going to be looking at how retailers are creating economic opportunity. So again, that's more of a strategic subject matter and how retailers are really giving back to the community. We also have a really nice panel discussion with Mike Relic, the CEO of Crate and Barrel, COO, I'm sorry, Casey Sherritt, VP of Technology Operations at Barnes & Noble, and the VP of IT, Rich Stefani from Smart and Final Stores. They're going to looking at kind of an operational excellence side. So how do you kind of implement that into your overall strategy and make your stores run better? And then as we kind of move down, we have Home Depot's VP of Integrated Media and Online Marketing, David Abbott, as well as a VP of Customer Insight Analytics at the Neiman Marcus Group. They'll be discussing kind of how retailers are utilizing data really as a new currency for their marketing platforms and how they communicate and acquire new customers. And one of our bigger headlines within the scope of the feature stage, we're going to have Mike McNamara as the EVP and CIO at Target, and he's going to talk about kind of how their technology team is leading a pretty significant transformation within the overall Target strategy.
Okay.
So those are kind of like the big names. We also have Rebecca and Yuri Minkoff on the big stage, on the feature stage. They're going to be coming in and talking about the convergence of online and offline technology from their perspectives. I believe they have kind of a big announcement to make, so we're really excited to have them as well.
Okay, great. And then moving on to the breakout sessions or tracks, what do we have there?
Yeah, so this is kind of, like I said, a number of really much more tactical how-to kind of step-by-steps of different aspects of retail. So one of the more interesting ones, I would say, is this one called Fashion Geeks. It's all talking about wearables and how they are influencing different parts of the retail trade. And it's kind of a technology in a sense in its nascency as it relates to retail. So we're excited to kind of have that particular aspect going on there. From a robotics and AI perspective, we'll be featuring some interesting content from that end. And let's give you kind of a redefining mobile. We'll have the co-founder and CEO of Touch of Modern. His name is Jim Hum. Chris Mason, CEO and co-founder of Branding Brand. And the director of digital retail IT of Arcadia Group, Jamie Oveden, talking about how they're utilizing mobile strategies to influence customer spend. And let me think. I could go on and on because there's so many of them that right. It's like best to kind of download the mobile app and kind of take your pick. There's things from radical retail to marketing to mobile and IT. We cover a really broad swath of retail disciplines in those.
So if I was to look at an overarching theme for this year's show, would you be able to give me one or more themes on really, because this is, we're looking at, with all the quote unquote bad news about physical retail and what's going on, people are going to be looking at what is the future and how do I detect the bright and shiny objects from the real things to invest the very limited time and resources that I have.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And is the reason why we feature as many practitioners on the stage, so they can kind of tell you the hype from what is actually really being implemented and how, and if not implemented, what's kind of going on within the lab setting and why they're focusing their dollars in that way. I would say one of the biggest kind of galvanizing topics would be around the customer journey, merging the online and in-store experience based on a lot of data that you see that a vast majority of spend still happens in store from the customer, but also, a vast majority of that is influenced by online search and feedback and recommendations, things like that. So that's a pretty big theme in terms of how do you marry online and in-store the most effective way, and acquire and keep the customers that are going to keep you in business. I would say also brand engagement and stickiness is really big. How do you keep customers engaged in your brand? And then I think the last kind of big thing, and while we're featuring it as our opening keynote, is really acquiring and retaining talent. How do retailers best effectively have their either store associates or up through the management ranks that are kind of guiding a lot of the strategy. How do you acquire those people that are really good, as well as keep them on and get them into a career path that can keep your company at the forefront of all the competition.
Right. I think that last one, the talent side of it, is as you were mentioning, the future of work. Everybody's thinking about that across the political and the social aspects of what technology is doing to our lives, and it has a major impact on retail as well. So, e-commerce basically is trying to disenfranchise or disintermediate the salesperson, the sales associate. That's the idea. So, but there's definitely a value from a good sales associate that can actually help you, save you a lot of time of searching through hours and hours of different catalogs and websites and trying to figure out what works for you. So what do you think? Again, this is like a personal question. What do you think is going to be the future? And I know that's a very difficult thing to ask,
right.
But are the trends, because it seems to me like even Amazon is going local now with bookstores and groceries and different things. So the idea that the local side is dead, I don't think it's accurate. We see signs of that already. But where do people fit in the future?
Yeah, I think you have to have the people to really emphasize the experience, and bricks and mortar. The experience is probably tantamount to just about anything else, because quite frankly, if you're looking just purely for a transaction to get in and out, you can do that pretty easily via Amazon's capabilities, or Jet.com, or Box. There's a number of those kind of purely transaction. I know what I need, I know what I want, I got to get in, I've got to get out. I think also there's a big part of retail that is making a resurgence, where the transaction isn't the key, but it's more the experience. And so you'll find a lot of, for example, last year, Westfield Mall's co-CEO spoke at one of our keynotes, and it was really, just before they opened their new underground mall below World Trade Center in New York, about how you're really instilling the mall's not dead. It's like how are you kind of creating that community and that experience in store to ensure customers want to come back and look at it almost like as a source of entertainment. It makes them feel good. It releases the certain endorphins that that can keep the shopping experience really pleasant and kind of fun thing to do. In addition to buying the things that make you feel good, versus again a big package of toilet paper, or some of the things that you can kind of really do on more of a transactional basis via the web. So I think there's a really big resurgence of this focus on the brick and mortar. A lot of people like to touch and feel some of the products that they're looking for. So those that kind of started online only. Look at Warby Parker. They started putting up stores, or showrooms you would call them, so people could actually kind of have the experience of something bigger than just looking at a computer screen for their glasses, but also had a feeling of being in a library in a really warm, comforting environment where they're trying on glasses and feeling like they're kind of a really hip bookworm or something. So I think there's a lot of a lot of emphasis now for retail, or at least a push for retailers to utilize the brick and mortar format really as a sensory experience as much as a a transactional a place to transact and buy products.
Right.
The human element too, I guess, from a store associate, I think that's a really tough. It's a good question. I think a lot of retailers are struggling with that. There's so much turnover. I think if you can kind of believe in the culture of the business, like the Container Store has a really great company culture, and they don't have a whole lot of turnover in their stores, and they treat their their employees and staff like their family. That plays out really well toward toward the customer, because the staff is now engaged in what the products they're offering, what the ethos of the company is, and how they really want to help the customers. But if you're in another store where it's really about just moving product in and out, you're probably not going to have the best, you're not going to be able to retain talent. You're not going to have the best attitudes at the checkout and things like that. It's, I think it really, that starts at the top in terms of culture, and bleeds down into the stores where the associates are touching the customers.
Absolutely. That is so important. That it starts from the top. You go somewhere, you see the quote unquote attitude of the salespeople or the people in the store, you can probably make a pretty good correlation on how their lives are at work and how they're being treated, and it just flows down that way. And the relationship and the loyalty that people want to have with different things is, my opinion, is first and foremost is with people, with other people. So I think that's the part that I see. I think, personally, I think e-commerce is really cool and it's very convenient. I think there's going to be a swing back to the value of a good person, somebody that's going to actually help you. That concept of help with all these new, also like assistant apps. Even like, you look at Alexa or, the Google and Siri, the concept is to get help beyond what you can type on a computer or on your cell phone. And that is something that a human being can do a lot better, at least, for a while.
Yeah, I mean, there'll be certain, I think, areas where machine learning and whatnot will replace people, whether you like that or not. But it really will be kind of the less, at least in the kind of near future, it'll be kind of the less touchy-feely type of interactions with customers, and more, for example, Lowe's and the robot that they have that will bring, you ask it a question, where do I find XYZ nut or bolt? I mean, what's the most frustrating thing when you go to a store like that and you can't find like this really small thing in this huge store you want to go to? It'll take you there, point to where it is, and then, you're on your own. And you can leave the store associates to answer more intricate questions in terms of how do I put this together?
Exactly.
Or, so it gives more of the institutional knowledge, and you leave that to, the human brain to be able to enhance that customer experience. And then, when you have that pleasant experience in the store, how great is that? It's, you as a customer, you come away feeling, well, that was really helpful. I'm certainly going to come back. It makes me feel good. But when you don't have that that particular type, or you have a really bad experience, which unfortunately happens more often than it should in retail stores, you're less likely to kind of go back to that, if you want to make it a process, that process to go find the product that you want.
Right. So yeah, I think this is. It sounds like it's going to be an awesome show. I'm looking forward to attending and listening to many of these sessions. So thank you so much.
We look forward to having you and seeing others that'll be in New York at that time. 33,000 people coming together. is one large community with lots of tech, lots of, as you said, kind of bright, shiny objects, but applicability with the practitioners there speaking on behalf of their brands and kind of the exciting things that they're doing. Retail is a really exciting place to be right now. And has been, for probably, a good 10 or so years. And technology, again, has been a really big part of enhancing the consumer experience and ensuring that the customer is first in all of these, retail brands.
Right. And just one last point about, the bright and shiny objects is that even though something may seem like a fad or something, there are smart retailers that actually use these things in a way that it actually helps them materially. So when I say bright and shiny objects, I'm not just saying like write off anything that looks cool or new or robots or whatever. These are all, you got to try them, but you have to rely on your own instincts and your knowledge of your customers also to see how can you stand out, above the crowd using something.
Right.
So I think
exactly.
So that's another thing that I'm looking forward to actually seeing more and more of different ways to communicate and connect with shoppers. So
yeah, there'll be a lot of that again in that fast track keynote that I talked about on Tuesday morning. Will feature exactly what you're talking about there, some applicability directly to retail. Also, you may have spoken with somebody else in NRF about this too. The innovation lab up on the 4th floor is going to be really cool. That's been assembled with XRC in partnership with XRC Labs there in New York. They'll have some really cool technology. GM is bringing like a connected car that has a lot of retail applicability in terms of how they see. Consumers spending a number of hours within their car, being able to utilize connected technology for, promotions and different things to drive traffic, literally and figuratively drive traffic to their stores through these new technologies. So there's going to be a lot of really cool. GM is also speaking. If you look for that within the program, there's a lot of fun, applicable. Bright, shiny objects, as you will, to kind of keep the journey interesting as people come to attend.
Fantastic. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. And I
Absolutely.
recommend everybody that can actually make it to go over there. So to check this show out. So.
Yeah, we look forward to welcoming everybody there and get lots of rest, put on some comfortable shoes. We take over the whole Javitz Center, so it's a big, as I say, it's a big show.
And bring a bag with wheels.
Yeah, yeah. Save your bag, bring a bag with wheels. That's also important. Very good pro tip there.
All right, thank you so much, Eric. Have a great day.
It's my pleasure. It's great talking with you. Bye, Darius.
Bye bye.